I've been telling you guys for a very, very long time. I know you don't want to believe it, but we are in a housing crisis here. We've been in a housing crisis here, and it's not getting any better. It is not getting any better. So about 1 million of you sent me this report from WCVB. It's titled, New Report Finds Mass Housing Crisis is Pushing Workforce Out of State. Let's watch this together. Maybe not.
The housing situation in Massachusetts is now at a crisis level.
CEO Jim Rooney doesn't mince words. He says the new report issued today by the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce needs to be a call to action for Massachusetts.
We're hearing from young people, which are our future, that they don't think they can afford to live here anymore.
And the numbers are stark. The report finds Massachusetts lost more than 33,000 residents to other states just between 2024 and 2025.
So I obviously I have to pause this video a couple times and talk about this. So I don't know if this is the entirety of like the younger population, if this is all, it just says residents lost. However, prior to this, you were talking about the young population. Here's the problem. No matter if this is young or not, it's still problematic. But younger people leaving is a huge problem. And it's obvious why. People that come here, they go to school here, they get a career here, then they find out they can't afford to live here, and then they leave. You need to realize something. The people that are leaving are, I believe, within the age group of like, let's say 24, 25 to 44, 45. Those people are the ones that are going to generate the most amount of revenue for more than likely the longest period of time. I don't need a graph in order to tell me this, because you figure if somebody is getting out of college, they are getting a career, and they would normally start a family or buy a house here or do whatever they're going to do. You probably have a metric there where they are here for a very, very long period of time versus people, let's say, that are 45 or 46 plus, maybe their children are grown up, or maybe they're on the cusp of potentially thinking about leaving. And really, that's what happens here. We have young people leaving. We're not generating the revenue out of these people. And then the people that we're getting, may be questionable, okay?
The driving force, affordability. The median home sale price last year was $725,000 here. The median rent, $3,000.
Let me give WCVB some advice. I know this is Massachusetts as a whole. Okay, I understand that. But this house, if this is anywhere outside of Boston, this is not a $725,000 house. You know what? This video might be long. Let's do something funny. Let's go to Zillow.com. Okay. And let me type in, let's type in Wakefield. Okay. Let's go to price. Let's go minimum $650. Okay. We'll go to maximum $750. Now, Wakefield I like Wakefield, okay? It's not super duper expensive. It's expensive, but it's not super duper expensive. It's not like Linfield or Arlington or Melrose or something like that, right? We'll click apply. And now let's go to property type. Let's deselect all of these. Let's go to houses. This is single. Hang on. You seeing what I'm saying? Is there, hold on. We have a problem. So if you want to be a little bit more accurate, WCVB, this is the house that you need to look at. Okay. This should be this house should be your little thumbnail here for houses, because this is a 3-bed, 2-bath. I'm not hating on the listing, by the way. I'm in real estate too. Okay. I'm not, consider it like free promotion. Okay. Not hating on the listing. $759,000. Looks like this is a finished basement, tile basement. The house is pretty nice. Kitchen is from, at least the main cabinets are from maybe the early 2000s. They probably changed the countertops when they did this, put the backsplash in. I bet that wasn't original. Same thing with the lighting fixtures. So they did some updating to this. They kept the same hardware. This was an addition, I bet, to the kitchen with this branching off. It could have been original. Maybe they painted this white and this was originally this color, but they certainly changed the countertops because at least I think, right? So this is $759,000. Okay, this is what $759,000 looks like in Wakefield, Massachusetts. Decent backyard, not that big, but a decent sized backyard. It's a small cape. And let's see here. I want to take a look at one more thing. Yeah, the ceiling height on the second floor isn't too bad. Sometimes I look for. Just a pro tip, if you're looking for capes, I always look at the trim molding between the window and the ceiling. That way you could determine whether or not it's going to have low ceilings or not. But anyway, back to the article. They need to update this. You know what? Let's do one more. Let's do one more. Let's do this. Let's do one more. Okay. Sorry, this video is going to be a long one. No, not Linfield. Let's go over to Wilmington. Okay. So Wilmington, what is 740 grand? Is this Wilmington? Yes. 740 grand get you in Wilmington. Oh, this had a price cut too. I mean, it's run of the mill, builder grade material here. I'm not hating on the house. I'm just giving you factual evidence, right? Builder grade material. This is a $750,000 house. Laminate flooring. Older fixtures, some recessed cans, they could be updated. It's an older house, hot water baseboard. This is what 750 gets you, okay? It's a problem. They still have, wallpaper up. I'm not hating on the house. I'm just saying, this is almost $750,000. At least they have central air conditioning. So they have a mix of hot water baseboard and central air conditioning. But the place hasn't been updated in forever, right? And again, no offense to the agent or the house itself. It just, it is what it is. But yeah, that's what you're getting for 750 or that. Yeah, that's even more than this house. So this is not an accurate. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there.
Worse, Rooney says other states are doing a better job luring in top talent under the same conditions.
Other places are building housing, embracing the challenge. So the question was, what are they doing that we're not?
In some states, that includes down payment assistance programs, grants and loans for housing development, and changing zoning regulations to allow for more construction faster.
Here's the problem with this. Grants, loans for housing development. That's good. Okay. You should incentivize builders to want to come here and to build. Okay. Changing zoning regulations. Now, I know there's a lot of you out there that realize there's a housing crisis. I'm calling it like it is, guys. You want more housing so that your family members or your kids or your grandchildren could, live and grow up and maybe even retire in Massachusetts. But our zoning regulations are very, very strict, and it is one of the key components to why we don't see more new construction. That is one of the problems. On top of that, the down payment assistance. This is a big one. So I'm not against grants, okay? I just want to set the record straight. I'm not against grants, but there is a time and there is a place to award grants to homebuyers. Here's the problem. Right after the convention, the Republican convention, Healy decided to get on there and say, oh, you know what? We have some money in the till. We're going to offer up to $25,000 to first-time home buyers for a primary residence. I could do an entire video on this, but I'll keep my spiel really quick. You should not offer grants to people in a housing supply crisis, because what ends up happening when you get more people and apply more, this is what I call artificial demand, meaning there's more buyers that are now entering into a marketplace where there already is a lot of buyers for a supply that doesn't exist. So there's a time and a place to award grants, but you shouldn't award grants if there is a housing crisis. If you have 5 people Look at it this way. Look at Wakefield, for example. If you have 5 people looking for a single family home that's $750,000 or below in Wakefield, let me go back to that listing. I will show you something. Let's go back to Wakefield, okay? I'm going to show you what happens. Where's Wakefield? Let's go property type single family home filters. Let's see here. Coming soon, accepted offer and backups, pending under contract. Is there closed? Sold. Okay, here we go. Sold. All right, let's limit this. Let's bracket the price range to $750,000. All right. So in this is over the course of a long time. I don't think I could filter it by date. Let me take a look really quickly. Last sold date. Okay, here we go. Last 12 months. All right. Let's just go to a random one. Let's go to this one right here. Okay. Let's take a look at this. So this sold for $717,100. Let's see what it was listed at. I have no idea. I'm pulling this up randomly. Let's see if we could get the original list price. How come it is not coming up? Oh, here we go. Okay, there you go. So it was listed for sale on, could you see this? Yes, 10/15 listed for sale. Okay, up 47.4% from 2019. So they listed it for $689, which is $392 a square foot. They sold it for $717,000, or a 4.1% increase at the end of last year. This is what happens when you are within that threshold of competing for homes. Most of these homes, I'm willing to bet you within this price range, more than likely sold for over the list price. I'll almost guarantee it, because you're like, this is a 2-bed, 1-bath, 1,600 square foot home that sold for $720,000. Clearly, we have a problem here. Let's see what this was listed at. Okay, this one got a price reduction. So they started high. They listed at $750. It went contingent at $750. Literally in a couple days. They must have negotiated contingent. Okay, deal must have fell through after inspections or whatever they did. Okay, that's a bad example. But still, $720,000 for this house. It's 1,600 square foot, 2-bed, 1-bath. I mean, that's crazy, right? Let's take a look at this one. All I'm trying to show here is, so this one sold for $725. Let me go down. I'm sorry, I'm going so fast. Okay, this is another one. Listed for sale for $700 or $699, and it's sold for 3.7% over the list price, $725,000. It's not only about the percent above. This is something to remember. It's not only about the percent above the list price that they're getting, it's about the competition that happens in the middle. So that's what I'm trying to say. When you decide to give grants out to people and they are generally looking in a, let's call it a first-time home buyer price range, at least in Eastern Massachusetts, and you're giving out more money, you're going to create more volatility inside the marketplace. Most of the places that are within that medium price point, and remember, medium price ranges is a more accurate representation of the market. It's not pulling the highest high and lowest low. It's pulling where the bulk of the buyers are actually looking. So if the bulk of the buyers are actually looking at $700,000 or $750,000, guess what is going to happen? If you give out more money, you're going to introduce more buyers looking for the same exact product that does not frickin' exist. That's why grants are a problem during a housing crisis. If we had enough supply to meet the demand, it would be a smart move. However, I think that this was purely a political move by Maura Healey. Sorry for the rant.
A common competitive disadvantage to getting that person to decide to come to Boston is the housing affordability issue.
The report finds that is driving people to other states competing for top talent, including nearly 10,000 lost to New Hampshire, more than 11,000 to Florida, and more than 3,200 to Texas. The Pioneer Institute has been studying this same issue. Their recent research found Massachusetts loses 35% of college graduates after commencement. That's in line with the national average, except Massachusetts doesn't do a good enough job attracting people here from other states.
They don't care. Like, here's the thing. Massachusetts does not care about this. They don't care about the middle class. They would rather price people out to meet their ideological agendas and not care about those people, and then cater to the upper or high class people, or cater to the people that are at the bottom. Because here's what happens. They've created this dynamic. This is my opinion. They've created this dynamic where they're going to get the votes from up here and they're going to get the votes from down here. And of course, they will get some votes in the middle from people that are delusional. And then they move anyway. And they vote the same way to the place that they move, even though they got priced out of the market that they voted blue in. And that's the way that it goes. So we are in a constant replacement cycle of people here in Massachusetts. The original people that, grew up and lived in Massachusetts, they're going to, as soon as interest rates come down again, most of the people that is holding most of the inventory hostage, and no offense to you guys, is people that are 65 plus, because statistically, you guys don't want to sell your house, even though you could make a decent profit on it, but then have to be forced to buy at a higher rate and spend, an enormous amount more money for the same house somewhere else, because, you went from a $3,500 or $4,500 mortgage, or you have no mortgage at all here, to a $3,500 or $4,500 mortgage for less of a house somewhere else. People don't want to do that. So what's going to happen is once you see, if we ever see them start to trickle down to, 4% or 5%, you'll see these people put their homes on the market. The problem is there's a disparity between people who want to list their houses that have been staying in their houses and they should downsize, but they don't, because they're not going to downsize into a higher mortgage versus the, bigger house that they live in. Like I said before, the issue is that people that are my age, between 25 to 45, we don't have a problem. And you could look this up. This is an undeniable fact. We don't have a problem with the interest rates as they are, okay? Meaning there's going to be more buyers into the marketplace depending on the age group that most people are looking to buy in, let's say 25 to 44. They don't care about a 5.5% or 6 or 6.5% rate. They just want to get a house and get out of renting. But the people that own are the gatekeepers of the housing stock. And again, I'm not trying to be offensive here. It makes sense why you wouldn't sell, right? Let's just call it what it is. Those people need rates to come down even below where most of the buyers would consider acceptable to buy a house. So if they come down even further below that, it still doesn't matter, because there's going to be even more people that are going to be buying. So there's never going to be a balance in Massachusetts unless the permitting numbers are up and unless they figure something out with building. And on top of that, make the cost of building cheaper. You cannot implement stretch codes and all of these other green initiatives and make housing less affordable to build and expect people to buy and or build here. It doesn't work that way. You cannot have your cake and eat it.
It's to make up for it.
We have over 100 colleges here in Massachusetts, and that should bring a whole lot of vibrancy to our economy. But when they're leaving, that's not a good sign.
Jim Rooney says city and state leaders have taken action to address the crisis, but he stressed it's not enough. And he had this final message.
That means that our children can't live here.
Of course.
And don't we all want our kids and our grandkids to have the option or the ability to stay here? Or are they going to be priced out? That's what we're risking.
So the Chamber report does offer a number of suggested solutions, including reducing lot sizes, especially for starter homes, a 5-year statewide moratorium on some energy codes, and this is interesting, a 10-year sales tax exemption for materials that are used in housing construction.
That could be good. Like, the 10-year sales tax exemption on construction materials is a Band-Aid, I guess. Reducing lot sizes. I know you guys, again, I understand you probably don't want to hear this. You don't want a whole bunch of properties in your backyard. But remember, it's not condos that's the problem. It's single family homes. It's multifamily homes. Because realistically, what happens here, hang on, maybe I'll bring up the report in a second, but I just want to talk about this for a second. Most of the time, people that are looking for a house, what they're doing is they start with a single family home. Everybody wants that, let's call it the American dream of buying a single family home, raising a family in a single family home, and living in a single family home. Once they find out after a couple bids that they're getting absolutely crushed, then they'll look to other alternatives. They'll look to maybe a 2 or a 3 unit where one side is their primary and they'll rent out the other 2 units and gain some income as an option. Those are the two. And then obviously number 3 is the default. They can't buy a single family home. They can't buy a multifamily home, so they decide to buy a condo instead, and then they live out, their lives inside of this condo. Here's a part of the problem that happens inside of Massachusetts. We have and I'm not knocking the industry here. This is just, I'm simply just talking about what happens. And if you're in real estate or you're an attorney that does real estate, you know where I'm going with this. Single family homes. If you are a primary residence buyer looking for a single family home, you're not only competing with people that are also looking for that exact product, you're competing with people that want to buy that product and flip that product, right? You're dealing with bidding against investors. Then before the place even hits the damn market, you're going to potentially be competing with wholesalers. That's right. We have a ton of wholesalers in Massachusetts that will tell you your house is worth X when it's really worth a lot more, but maybe you just want to get out from under it. No offense to the wholesalers, but this is the way that it goes. I've been to multiple properties with wholesalers. No offense, but that's realistically what happens. These properties never even make it to market. So now you have this influx of people that are looking for a single family home, and they're bidding against investors that want to flip the property. They're bidding against people that want to be landlords and buy it and rent out the property. They're bidding against other single family home buyers. And prior to it even getting on the damn market, there's wholesalers that are scooping up these properties, making massive profits on the back end. And they never make it to market in the first place. The same rules apply for a multifamily home. Now, I understand it is a free market, and I understand that everybody should have the opportunity to bid on these properties, right? But I think something needs to be done here. I'm not saying for government to step in necessarily and do something, especially state government for that matter. They'll mess it all up. But I think something should be done here because we have an influx of buyers looking for a product, and they can't buy it because they're getting outbid by a whole bunch of other forces. You only need one other person to bid on a property in order for it to get bid up. For example, the properties in Wakefield that we just looked at. If they're only getting maybe 3 to 5% above the list price, well, I think that maybe there was only a handful of buyers that were actually writing offers on these houses. If you had even more of an influx of buyers, what ends up happening is it trickles down on a buyer to buyer basis. So what I mean by that is this. Let's say 3 people bid on one house in Wakefield that went 4% over the list price. That's all fine and dandy. Now let's say you had 10 people bidding on the same property, right? What ends up happening is as you knock one of those buyers out of the market, that's almost a guarantee there's going to be another buyer that replaces them. So as you keep on getting outbid on every single property, what ends up happening is your price that you decide to give in terms of your offer above list price keeps on increasing and increasing and increasing and increasing because every single buyer is in a competition with each other to each knock each other out of the marketplace. That's when you see 10% over the list price, 15% over the list price. That's when you see things like that happen. It is a huge problem. It really is. I mean, it's good for the sellers in one hand, but on the other hand, if they're buying within the same marketplace, they're only going to feel the same effects when the time comes to buy. The only time a seller actually really makes out here is if they sell, they don't get crushed with taxes, and they buy into a market that has a decent amount of inventory, like Texas and like Florida. That's where they go to. That's why most people are moving to those states from Massachusetts, because they could afford a $450,000 house there, and it'll be like a damn mini mansion, really, depending on the location, right? That's what happens. Let me do this. Let's see if we could take a look at this report real quick. Where's it at? Okay, it's 60 pages. I'm not going to go through 60 pages with you guys. This video is already too long. You probably not even make it this far. Let's see what we can find here. Okay, here's one. So the housing market in context. Let me make this 120. There we go. Median house price. Now, this is Massachusetts as a whole. The previous graph that they showed on, what was it? Was it Channel 5? Was 725, but that was for last year. This report may be encompassing a little bit more than that. Maybe the 725 was just a portion of Massachusetts. Maybe it was Eastern Massachusetts. This may be all of Massachusetts. So that could be the disparity there. $665,000 versus $419,000. This is the big one, though. Permits per capita, 170 housing units per 100,000 residents. The United States is 417 housing units per 100,000 residents. That is a massive, massive, massive difference. This is why we have a problem. And you know what? Hold on one second. Let me do this. Let me pull up my old... I saved this too. I want to show you something. Where we at here? Here. Let me see if I can pull this up. Hold on 1 second. Yes, I can. Okay. Sorry, I'm bouncing around on you. I wrote this a while ago. It's called The Great Housing Hoax, right? So I also did a video on this. So basically what's going, this is what is actually happening in Massachusetts, and this is the nuts and bolts of what is happening, okay? It says, and I'm not going to read this whole thing word for word, but I want to show you what's going on. Basically, Maura Healey claims that she has either built or permitted or put in the pipeline 100,000 homes, which is theoretically true. It is theoretically true. But when you start to go through the archives, her own official government website calls it a housing thermometer. And what they do is they're trying to track this housing surge, and they're showing you where most of this inventory is coming from. Now, this they are using as by the way, she's running on this. This is what they're using as the cornerstone for her re-election campaign that she's doing so great on housing. So here's the problem. Okay, here's the problem. I got to show you. Breaking down the 100,000 homes claim. Of the 90 to 100,000 home figure she keeps citing, here's what actually breaks down to. Roughly 63,100 units were completed and added to the housing stock, which is true. The remaining units are a combination of homes under construction, projects awarded state funding, and privately financed proposals still in the pipeline, still on paper, not built, not even shovels in the ground. Now, the other thing, out of that 90,000 figure, most of those homes, they were part of what Charlie Baker worked on, meaning that the homes were permitted under Baker. They started construction under Baker. But what Healey decided to do is she decided to thieve those homes and claim them as her own. That's what happened. So Baker started it. She finished it, let's say, that they were going to get finished anyway, but she claimed the data points, if that makes sense. Her own office data shows that only 28,500 units were actually permitted after she took office. That's the real number. That's a thin slice of the pie that actually happened under her watch, under her rules, and under her green mandates and updated stretch codes. Then if you want to do a side-by-side comparison, here you go. This is from Charlie Baker's term and Maura Healey's term from the time that I wrote this article, which was a couple of months ago. So this is how many single-family homes Charlie Baker built. 20,566. Maura Healey has built 5,791 as of writing this article. Condos, 15,646 versus 2,636. Multifamily units, 894 versus 538. Total properties in public record, 37,000 plus versus close to 9,000. So that's the issue. That is the issue. Anyone that is running these numbers, this is what they are. And this is the other thing, the permit pipeline, right? Annual permits under Baker at its peak was 19,000. Annual permits under Healey is 14,000. Massachusetts permit rank in 2024, I think we're even lower than that now. I'll actually check that document, was number 45. That's a problem. We are getting outpaced from other New England markets. And on top of that, we're making it more expensive to build. That's not my statistics. That came from MIT, because even MIT researchers have linked stretch code adoption to higher construction costs up to 4%. Now, if it's $100,000 or $200,000 house, 4% ain't that bad. But when you're talking $700,000 plus, 4% is a lot of money. That is what is happening here. That is what is happening. We have a massive issue in this state, and it all boils down to the leadership. Let's see if what else we can find here. Let me actually type in permits, and let me see if there's data on permitting that I could find that's a little bit more granular. All right, I'm not going to be able to go through this whole damn article, but anyway, let's see if we could find anything good here. What do we have here? Massachusetts migration patterns. Net migration versus net domestic and net international. We are just not picking up. We're losing more than we're gaining, and it's questionable, if that makes sense, for the people that we are gaining. That is what is going on. So, and one of the things is they actually have, I believe, Let me type in because they did say something about this. The MBTA Communities Act, at least this guy did. Let me see here. Let's see if we can find something. What's this? Housing initiatives. All right, I'm not going to go through the whole report with you guys. Percent of household income Massachusetts residents spend on rent. 35% or more. It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. And the thing is, like, here's the other thing. So when you really look at these, I'm not going to go through this whole report. It's too long. Like, I could do a full video on it and get all the data together and, do a breakdown and edit the video. I really don't feel like doing that. If you want me to, I will. But the reality of what's going on here, when people get out, when kids get out of college and they get their careers and stuff like that, the amount of income that they're making doesn't match what it costs to buy a house. The disparity between income and, on top of that, college education, right? If you look historically throughout time, things have only gotten more expensive and people are not making any more money to compensate for that. So if the house prices keep going up, but let's say your income per your career or per your job and your salary is not matching that, not necessarily that it has to, but it can't look like this, right? Wait, let me see here. Can't look like this. It's got to be a little bit closer to this, right? So that's the main issue here. And on top of that, businesses are not moving to Massachusetts. If you don't have businesses moving into Massachusetts, and I'm talking like decent sized businesses, and then they recruit people, they bring more people to the area, they're not moving here because they can't afford to stay in business. That's the problem. They can't afford to stay in business and they can't afford to pay their employees enough to the point where they could actually have a good quality of life here. And we're not even talking about quality of life. The quality of life in Massachusetts sucks. Okay, I like Massachusetts, don't get me wrong. But if you're spending, 75% or 60% of your income, or, you're living paycheck to paycheck in Massachusetts, what kind of life are you actually living, right? Something needs to be addressed when it comes to housing. We need to fix zoning. People should be able to build, and I know you don't want to hear this, but most of the houses that are being built from builders, do you think they're 1,600 or 1,700 square foot single family homes? Starter homes? No, absolutely not. They're 2,200 to 2,500 plus single family homes. So you figure, the cost of construction for new construction, what is it going to be? $250 to $300, maybe on the low end, with builder grade material that they got at a damn auction, up to $400 to $450 or $450 plus per square foot on something that's more custom or luxury. So how are people going to afford that? They're not going to be able to. The fact of the matter is, I think what's happening here, and if there's any builders, they could comment on this. I think that for a builder to actually make a profit after they buy the material, after they get through the permitting process, after they do all of what they need to do in order to break ground before they even start to build, I think that the profit margins are probably very poor for a 1,600 to 1,700 square foot house, meaning that it's not only about the dollar by dollar amount that they're going to make, but it's about the time investment as well. Because from the time you start to talk about building a house to the time that you actually break ground when it comes to the permitting and regulations and all the red tape, it takes forever. So they need, or more than likely, I would think, and I'm speculating here, I think that they need to build bigger houses, let's say on bigger lots, in order to be able to actually make a profit. That's what I think is generally happening. So we don't have new construction homes that are entering into the marketplace for first-time homebuyers. Almost guaranteed, first-time homebuyers are not buying a brand new construction single family home right after they get their career, unless they have, they crushed it and they're making $300,000 or $400,000 a year or something like that as soon as they start out. It's more than likely not that's few and far between people like that, right? Usually they look for the single family home, then they option out multifamily homes, and then they stick with the condo or a townhouse because they can't even enter into the marketplace. Huge problems, and they're not going to get corrected until there's so many studies that have been done on this, whether it's Pioneer Institute, whether it's this, whether it's that. I've talked about it forever. There needs to be something that gets done here. There has to be some sort of reform, and not a reform where you're only making it more expensive to build the same exact product prior to you being in office. And I'm talking directly to you, Mara Healy, with your stretch codes and all these green mandates and all of this other stuff. You're making it less affordable for people to build and to buy a house. If you add another 3 or 4% on top of what it was prior to getting in office, do you think that the builder is going to eat 3 or 4%? Absolutely not. They're going to add that to the sticker price of the damn house. That's what is going to happen. It's been happening and it will continue to happen, unfortunately. But that's it. I could go on forever about this. I'm sorry this is so damn long, but of course this is, one of my wheelhouses. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate your support. I'll see you on the next one.